Just in my last video, I reviewed the Nubia Z11, the one with the crazy narrow design, and even though it was a phone with a lot of great attributes, for me the deal breaker just was the fact that it couldn't hold up in terms of performance with other flagships, which it tries to compete with. And that's why I just couldn't properly recommend it personally. But the Nubia Z11 Max is something completely different. First of all, of course, it targets a different market, being a 6-incher. But even though it does not have the overall great qualities, it also doesn't have the deal breaker, which in my opinion, especially with the better value, makes it the way better phone. Why that is the case, we will see. So let's start off with the design and build quality. Personally, in terms of design, I like it a lot. It looks quite nice. Nothing to complain here. We have a flat back. A curved back feels a little bit nicer on bigger phones, but it is okay. Therefore, we have rounded off sides. What I've noticed though, that the transition from the side to the back is a little bit sharp due to the beveled edge, but this is something you won't really notice in normal use. It feels top in the hand, and of course, since it is big, one-hand usability won't be all that great, but it still is quite compact, I have to say, with quite a small top bezel, and the one on the bottom, since we have capacitive buttons, is still okay. You don't really see them, but they are there. And of course here in the middle, power button with, yes, we have a black border around. This is just something you will have to get used to. Build quality, absolutely top, feels super solid, really premium build, really great. The fingerprint reader, I would say, is maybe just about okay, because even though you see, if I just tap on it, it reacts very fast and it is reliable. What I've noticed though, that the whole process, if the screen is off, takes a little bit longer, and you kind of have to tap the fingerprint reader. You can't just slide on it like on some other phones, because as you can see, then it just doesn't notice it. As you can see here, you have to kind of tap on it. Was a little bit different, something you have to get used to. Here we have the LEDs, the camera that does stick out here in this case, also the headphone jack, microphone, SD card and SIM card tray. On the bottom we have USB Type-C. We have the speaker this time on the left side with the microphone on the right. Usually it's the other way around. In terms of buttons, definitely nicely placed power button here in the middle, easy to reach along with the volume rocker. They have a nice tactile and clicky feedback, but there is a little bit of wiggle to that, but it's absolutely fine. No notification LED though, something unfortunate, because they could have actually used the home button as that since it glows, but it's also so faint that you wouldn't really notice it anyways. But overall, design and build quality at least very good, if not even better. Now the next thing to talk about would be the display, and what I want to show off here is that you can tweak the display but only change the tone of the color temperature, because you can set it to cool tone, warm tone and natural. That's it. No real option to tweak the saturation, which would have been nice after all, since this is an AMOLED display, therefore has amazing blacks. The white levels are great, but for some people the colors after all could be oversaturated. What I like to see though, what I found to be quite nice though, that even though it is an AMOLED display that tends to oversaturate, they have an actually fairly nice balance to it, because colors seem of course popping and vibrant and definitely vivid, but they aren't definitely over the top. So definitely quite a pleasing display, and I actually like it a lot. In terms of brightness, I noticed though that I had to get a little bit higher, so I needed to use like 60-65%. Everything below that felt a little bit dull to me. Maximum brightness, I would say, was very good, maybe not quite great. And there is one thing that I've noticed, that there is some dimming in some certain apps, like for example the settings. You will see that it just brightens up in anything else. This is maybe barely noticeable, because it really dims like maybe 5%, so it's not a big issue like on some other phones. Okay, let's talk about the sound now and start with the speaker. The one thing to point out, since it is on the bottom, if you have it in landscape, you will block it in game, so maybe be a little bit cautious not to do that. But otherwise, I have to say the speaker is absolutely solid, actually good, because the maximum volume was way more than enough, actually really good. And the sound was also really nice, because it maybe is not crazy warm and rich, but absolutely nicely balanced with very clear highs, and this is something that I really like to have seen. So it's almost a very good speaker, maybe with a little bit of a different placement actually, but definitely solid and very good. And the same kind of also goes for the headphone jack, because it is at least above average, a little bit louder, and there is a setting that you can use to tweak it, but I can't really show it off because you have to plug in actually a headphone jack or a headphone into that. But you have the Dolby Digital software where you can tweak the equalizer and so on, and it makes a difference, and it sounds definitely decent. So I would say let's get into the first thing that I want to show off when it comes to the performance, is that I think the multitasking is a little bit limited, since you have to long press to actually activate the recent apps. You can't just hit it once, because then it is just the back button and here is the menu button, and you can't change that, because if you can see, if we go into the features and change the custom button key, you can only change the layout from menu, but you can't switch it to the recent apps. So you have to long press, which makes the whole process a little bit slower. But the good thing is that you can actually use a free finger swipe to swipe between apps. And this is actually then again once quite good. But let's talk about the performance itself first. Now, as you can see here, launch times absolutely okay. Not crazy fast, but definitely way above a mid-range level and quite close to a flagship already. So I'm very pleased here. No complaints at all. A really great job. Yeah, there are faster ones, but this is absolutely fine. And as we can see here, the browsing performance is absolutely nice because it's very, very smooth. And since it is an AMOLED display, it feels also smoother than on some LCD displays. As you can see here also, there is a minor little lag here and there, but it's way better than what we have seen on the Nubia Z11. I just have to say that in overall it feels so much nicer. As you can see here, really great performance, little to no lag. Absolutely, I'm pleased. This is an absolute top performer. Maybe not perfect, and it's not, after all, on a flagship level, but in my book, it's totally fine. Same as the gaming performance, which is actually super close to a flagship because we have very high frame rates overall. Pretty much no slowdowns, no frame drops or anything. You can play all games super nicely. For some reason, my Bluetooth controller got activated, but it didn't really react on anything. But I blame my Bluetooth controller for that. But otherwise, I have to say, overall, great for gaming. It doesn't really heat up at all. The Snapdragon 652 is super efficient, so I'm highly pleased here. Top job. Okay, let's talk about the next thing, that would be the battery. A full charge takes about 2 hours and 5, which, considering the bigger battery, is absolutely fine. 10% for an hour of YouTube is really good, especially since we have a bigger screen here, so very good for multimedia. You can see my battery estimates, and I would say 5.5 hours with about 1 hour more on a mixed use, and even 1 hour more on Wi-Fi only is a very good result. Of course, 1 hour less over the course of 2 days, which makes it definitely at least great, if not almost great plus. So I'm also very pleased here with the really good battery life, especially with the very, very good standby drain, which is pretty much non-existent due to the big battery. Okay, now I want to take a little bit more time to talk about the software, which I didn't do in the Nubia Z11 review. First of all, as you can see here, let's switch to the actual original launcher. Let me quickly find that, because this can be done, as we can see here, default app settings. Then you can change it back to the Nubia launcher, but it's not something really spectacular. As you can see here, we don't have an app tray. Just a normal launcher, but this is fine. We also don't have a theming engine, which is no problem for me at all, because I really like the design of the UI with the transparent and whites. Looks quite nice here also. This is still quite stockish. I got an update, and I have to say what I like so much on this software is that we have a lot of great features, because we have, even though it's not Nougat yet, we have split screen view. And if I find an app real quick that actually supports it, as you can see, just swipe up and then you have 2 apps. Here you could launch the second one. In terms of performance, all great, and it works pretty much the same as on Nougat. Maybe not quite, but very, very close. And as you can see here, we have the free finger swipe and a lot of other gestures, because as you can see, we have double tap to wake the display. We have a free finger screenshot. So just swipe with all 3 fingers, it makes a screenshot. This is one and I really like, free finger switch app, which means you can just switch between the apps with this. This is just something super convenient. And let me actually turn off my gestures, which are actually turned off, so I can show you the bezel gestures, because they are still here available as well. As you can see here, if you would now swipe on the sides, you could change the brightness. This is a bezel feature, even though it's not the bezel-less design as on the Z11. And as you can see here, you can also have a double click to the edge to go back and switch between the apps. I can quickly show you this, because it's actually quite something nice, because if you swipe up, you can go back and forth. But like I said, this is, since I'm using my gestures right now, as you can see here, it works. This is usually, it works fine, but my smart desk launcher is just interfering with that, because I use my bezels for something else. But otherwise, I like it a lot. We have smart sensing, of course, as you can see here. Nothing really spectacular anymore. We have the split screen mode, I've showed that as well. In the sound, we have here, as I said, the sound effects. Dolby Digital Plus is available. Of course, something more, some notification settings. The launcher, of course, you can actually change the desk layout, as you have seen. You can change the wallpaper and so on. So overall, I like it a lot. The only thing that I don't like so much is that I have to long press it. But it kind of makes up for that you can use that and also, as you can see here, the gestures to swipe between the apps. So all I gotta say, the UI looks great, it functions well, I am pleased. Nothing else to say here. Okay, let's talk about the camera here. Selfies, in my opinion, look quite nice. Quite a nice amount of details and sharpness here. Of course, it's not a flagship level camera after all. Just keep that in mind. But I have to say, I'm totally pleased with the results. Even in low light, as you can see here, it gets a little bit more blurry. Maybe not quite, a little bit, let's say, soft. But still absolutely pleasing results. And also here, a photo with a flash, without the flash. And even the low light capabilities are still good. You have to keep a little bit of a steady hand. Sure, okay, that's fine though. Since I have to say, the pictures look good. Absolutely okay. In this price range for what it is, absolutely great. Outdoors, I see here a lot of details. I like the sharpness. I'm pleased because the autofocus works really reliable. The outcome is absolutely nice. We have a lot of details and sharp. Colors seem fine. The saturation seems absolutely okay, and also the balance of dark and lighter areas. So I would say it's definitely a very good camera, not quite a flagship level, but since it is not a flagship phone, I can definitely see past that, and I'm actually pleased because very pleasant photos, almost no bad ones. Pretty much every photo was an instant hit with a very nice overall quality. Video is great because we have 4K capabilities, which is great. We have also 1080p 60 frames. The only thing about 1080p 60 is though to say that the video looks very choppy on the viewfinder, but in reality it's absolutely smooth. And as you can see here, the autofocus works very well. It's smooth. The only thing to complain here about the video quality in general is not just the shaking here because we have no auto or no image stabilization, but the fact that we see a lot of artifacts and it's just not crazy sharp. I've seen 4K being sharper, but the overall experience is still fine. The artifacting is maybe one thing that is not all that great, but something I can't really blame it for. So, like I said, overall still absolutely pleased. And that's why I would say let's go to the pros and cons, since I've pretty much covered all that I wanted to. So let's get through the pros and cons in case I've forgotten something to mention. Now, first thing, build quality. Absolutely top, feels great. This could even be way more expensive just in terms of build quality. It's also fairly compact for what it is, a 6-incher after all. Display is very good. It would be good enough for a flagship, but a lot of people would dismiss it because it's maybe not Quad HD or so, but the qualities itself are at least very good. Maybe it could be a little bit brighter. The dimming feature could be gone away, but it didn't really bother me so much. So still very good. The speaker almost very good. I would say at least very solid and good because it was loud and it sounded fairly nicely balanced. Headphone jack was also above average, so I would say close to good enough, satisfying. The performance overall was very good. Of course, I can't say great since there are flagships there after all, and there was a minor little amount of lag. But overall, still very good, very pleasing. And if I would have gotten this kind of performance on the Z11, I would have been also super pleased because especially the gaming performance was super close to a flagship level. We have great battery life, if not even great plus, amazing standby drain and so on, so all is good here. I absolutely like the software. It's actually one of the better softwares out there because it's very minimalistic in terms of design, looks clean, the features are there. I didn't even get the time to show off all of them, but it's great. And then we have a very good camera. Overall, absolutely satisfying in this price range. Absolutely legit. And then the value at around 400 euros. Can't say so much about the dollar pricing because if you import it, you could get it even so much cheaper. But I would expect it from what I've seen on Amazon.com like $370 to $400. Now, let's talk about the not so great stuff. It's quite big after all, which is in brackets, but because a big phone has to be big after all. The fingerprint reader was something that I had to get used to because you kind of have to tap on it. Felt a little bit weird, but it is fast, it is reliable, but it's not the very best one. Then we have the video camera falling slightly behind in terms of the quality. It could be a little bit sharper, a little bit less artifacting. They could fix this, or with a different kind of third-party camera, you should be able to fix that as well. And no notification LED, not a huge deal for me because I really don't even notice it so much anymore. Maybe it's actually even there and it didn't turn up for me for some reason, but I didn't see it. But this is where I want to end it, just real quick getting back. Okay, final conclusion is, would I recommend for 400? Yeah, absolutely, because the overall qualities are, like I said, maybe not always great, but at least very good. There is no deal breaker, there is nothing. It feels great, the display is great, it sounds good, performance is very good, battery life is great, software is great, camera is very good. So as you can see, nothing where it really falls short, and that's so important for me. If I have one phone where I don't have really anything big to complain about, that would annoy me over time. Absolutely not the case. Now I guess a few people want to know what else to consider in this price and size range. I think the closest thing would be the actually the Huawei Mate 8. Should be around that price at this point around. Here is how I would compare it. In terms of build, both great, absolutely. I would say pretty much on par. The display I actually kind of like a little bit more since it is AMOLED. I just prefer that these days. But the Mate 8 has a great display. The sound is better here. Overall, performance is ever so slightly maybe better here, but it's also very good on the Mate 8, maybe neck to neck. Gaming performance would be better here as well though. Then the battery life is very good on both. Can't really say so much about now. I would say also maybe on par. I definitely like the software here a lot more, and the camera especially overall felt a little bit nicer here. Now, of course, there is also like a Mate 9, but that is so much more expensive that I won't really consider it as to be a real competitor. If you want to know, I would just say this one, mostly because of the way better value, and this is where I want to leave it. I'm way more pleased with this one than I was with the Z11. Like I said, why? It doesn't have to be always great in everything, but as long as it's very good on a high level and doesn't disappoint me at some point, I'm happy with that, and this is where I want to leave it. You know the rest. Subscribe, comment, like, and everything else, and enjoy the day. Until next time, bye.